Look forward to other opportunities to get ready. I want to dive in to the topic at hand and say a couple of introductory remarks, but then to really dive into the material. We are, as often change, agents are, we're canaries in the mind of a certain sort. We are the resource by which the society is asking questions about sexuality and pleasure and love and commitment and desire and continuity. We, in reproduction, we are one of the places where everyone goes to figure out what they've been doing and don't understand needs. So on some level, what I want to kind of put forth is that we tend to think of our own explorations as unique to our circumstance, and we forget that we are a piece of the ongoing exploration of this tradition as it greets God and the human condition, and we're not only here for us. Our exploration about what it means to be human is useful for humanity and certainly for the larger Jewish people, and therefore it allows us to feel, rather than really knocking at the door and begging to be let into something, we have Torah to teach. That's really needed. God gave Torah to the world, and everyone heard a slightly different voice until everyone around the table is present. No one knows exactly what the revelation fully meant. So there's something of the revelation that's been missing, our voices in a certain way, women's voices in another way. And so I just want to put on the table that this exploration is not only about us, but is about what it means to be human in God's voice. I also want to begin by saying that as a deep pluralist, not merely superficial pluralist, I used to be a superficial pluralist, which meant to say you were a pluralist in order to be nice to people you thought were, egregiously wrong. And now I'm a deep pluralist, which means to say no one possesses 100% of any truth, and therefore, while you can be committed to who you are and what you do and why, in the humility that emerges out of your recognition of the truth being larger than any one person, any one group, any one ideology, allows you in calm to listen and learn from everyone. So that's the kind of pluralism I want to put forth here as well, to suggest that this idea that I'm suggesting to you, please disagree with it, please don't accept it, please reject it, please do whatever you want, take parts of it, but I'm not actually presenting some kind of pure frame of what everything ought to be. I want to begin by just giving you a very, very quick background into the existing ceremony we call it Kiddushin. And in order to do that, I have a 20,000-page book. What I'd like to do, we don't... those of you who were not here for the Dvar Torah, so I have the Pasuk Yitzchak there. The reason I began with it is because I just wanted to begin overall with this imagination that the creation of the world emerges out of Chesed. God's overflowing love is why everything is here. And so the exploration of how that will play out for us is a piece of building a world. But I don't want to focus on that because we have too much to do. And I want you to please skip a bit in the beginning and turn to the beginning of Birkot Elosim Nesuim. I want to just give you just a structure of what we call Kiddushin in a heterosexual frame. What page number? It is page 5. Thank you. The marriage service. Now, once again, and of course, this is only a post-wounded, like a no longer wounded gay imagination. We don't need to reject the incredible beauty and wonder of a heterosexual union in order to be. We don't need to diss anything in order to be who we are, including the marvelous excitement of a man and a woman under a chuppah. Right? We don't need to somehow resist anything of that gorgeousness. We need to be able to live with it all and to somehow be present. So I want to not address this in some way as something alien or awful, but I do want to actually mark what it is. Now, first, there are two rituals. And everyone, in a way, we know this and don't know it. We see it distinctively because there are two glasses of wine in the beginning and the end. But these are two separate rituals that at one time were separated by almost a year, 6 months to a year of time. And the first one is called Erusin, which is kind of betrothal. The second one is Nisuin, which, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what it might be called. It is when the couple finally joins together in their intimate life. And the truth is that these two ceremonies are halakhically distinct. Erusin is saying, this person I commit to, I'm forbidden to everyone else, and I leave that person with a question mark. In other words, the Erusin is about closing off options. The one person you're not closing off options to isn't finalized, which means that the Erusin just creates prohibitions. What the Erusin says is, this woman, okay? I say, Hare'at Mikudeshet Li, I don't have a ring, so don't worry. Once I say that and I give the ring and she accepts it, I have purchased her freedom for giving her sexual body to anyone else. That's what's happened. I have created isurim, prohibitions. I have created no permission on my part to actually sleep with her. I've created nothing more than a set of setups for what will happen later. This usually happened early in a couple of parents would get together and they would say, Yossi is good for Shendel, and they got together and they created tonight, and they created a sense of expectation. And then there was a Rusin, which was setting up a contract that was to end up a year later in taking the bride and groom from the Erusin status and bringing them to a public, and by the way, the Erusin can be in front of three witnesses. It needs to be witnessed. It doesn't need to be public. What needs to be public is Zat Nisuin, which is in front of the whole community, under a chuppah, right? The celebration of this couple's sexual union, and then after that moment, you literally send them off to have sex. You go party, they come in there. And that setup, by the way, the chuppah used to be just either a colored canopy where you sent them off for their first intimacy, or the apartment or home of the groom.